back of his neck like a cold breath and the small heat of Ava at his side. At the end of the aisle, he angled left toward the customer service desk where cameras watched from 3 different angles and where Tanya, who ran returns like a general, had a direct line to 911 if she needed it. "Hey, Tanya," Mark called. "Can we see if a little one lost something earlier? We might have a missing sticker book or, a bracelet." Tanya's eyes flicked to Ava's, then to the man, then back to Mark. She understood more than he'd said. "Sure thing," she said, warm and steady. "Let's check the back." The man stepped in. "We're in a hurry. It'll be quick," Mark said. "Kids hate losing stuff." Ava's hand brushed Mark's sleeve. It was barely a touch, but it was enough to steady the quake in his ribs. When they reached the desk, he shifted, blocking the man's path beside the swing gate. "Sir," he said. "ID." The man's lips pulled flat. "I told you. In the car. Then I'll walk you out," Mark said, still smiling. "Ava can stay here with Tanya." "Sound good." Ava didn't look at the man. Can Blue stay too?" she whispered, holding up the bunny. "Blue can absolutely stay," Tanya said, reaching for the stuffed ear. Something brittle cracked in the man's gaze. He leaned over the counter, just a hair too close. "We don't need all this. She's with me." Mark's smile vanished. "Step back." The words were quiet, but the edge was not. In the corner of his eye he saw Tanya's hand slide under the counter toward the phone. A cart rattled 2 aisles over. A baby cried somewhere in produce. The ordinary world kept going. The part that mattered had narrowed to a razor. "Step back," Mark said again. The man stepped back. He was calculating, redrawing angles in his head. The sliding doors to the parking lot were 30 feet away. The bakery case was 10. He could run, Max thought. Or he could bluff another 30 seconds. "What's your name?" Mark asked. "Cal." A lie. It sounded like a lie that didn't care to be believed. "And Ava's mom?" Mark asked. "Caroline." Ava flinched. So light, so quick most people wouldn't have seen it. Mark saw it. He lowered himself to the girl's eye level, slow enough not to scare her, steady enough to lend her his calm. "Hey, Ava," he said softly. "I know a game. It's called Tell the Truth 3 times. Do you want to play?" Her throat bobbed. She nodded. "What's your bunny's name?" Mark asked. "Blue." "Good. What's your favorite cereal?" She looked at the row behind them. "The rainbow one with marshmallows." "Last one," he said, even softer. "Who did you come here with?" Her lip trembled. She looked at Tanya. She looked at Mark. She looked at the man. "My mom," she whispered. "But I can't find her." The air left Mark's lungs. He stood in one motion, his voice changing shape. "Sir, you're going to keep your hands where I can see them and you're going to turn around slowly." The man's eyes darted to the doors. "You're making a mistake," he said, flat. "Turn around." He didn't. He bolted. Mark went after him, all slow play gone. He was not young anymore, not on certain mornings when his knee pinched and the old Marine scars complained. But adrenaline makes liars of age. He tore past the bakery case, knocked his shoulder into a cardboard tower of chips, hurdled a dropped avocado. The man shoved through the doors into pale winter daylight. "Stop, police!" Mark shouted. The man sprinted toward a silver sedan already idling. A driver hunched behind the wheel, cap low, smoke curling from the window. "Back up." Not an uncle, not a friend, not any version of safe. Mark yanked his radio. "Unit 12, code red at Franklin Grocers, East Exit. 2 adult males, 1 child sophomore inside with staff. Suspected abduction. Silver sedan, no plates on the front, partial on rear." The sedan fishtail ed, shot forward, and clipped a shopping cart so hard it screamed. Mark drew, taking the angle that gave him the tires, not the windshield. "Stop the car." His voice cracked across the lot. It didn't stop. He fired at the front tire, then again. Rubber blew out. The car lurched, skidding. The passenger door flung open and the runner dove back inside. The sedan jerked forward on a ragged arc and slammed into a concrete post. The airbag exploded white. By the time Mark reached the door, he had the man face down on the asphalt, cuffed, breath puffing in the cold like steam. The driver was dazed but conscious, swearing through blood in his teeth. Sirens grew from dots to bars of sound. Shoppers gathered in a nervous ring, phones out, every angle a future rumor. Mark's hands shook. Rage, relief, fear, all of it. He looked past the crowd, through the glass, back at the little shape by the customer service desk. Ava stood on tiptoe to see, Bunny pressed to her chest. When she saw him look, she didn't wave. She just lifted her finger once more, small and solemn, and let it fall. It took hours to fold the chaos into paperwork and process. Officers canvassed the store for footage. Detectives took over the interviews. The sedan turned out to be stolen. The men had burner phones, which told their own story, text threads full of coded errands and ugly jokes and the kind of directions that mapped a slow bruise on a city. Ava stayed with Tanya in the break room, where the staff kept a stash of sugar cookies for bad days and children who needed to feel like the world could still give them something sweet. Mark brought hot chocolate, too many marshmallows because he'd promised, and knelt by the little round table. "You did everything right," he said. Ava's eyes were rimmed red. "I lost my mom. I know. We're going to find her." "How?" "By following every thread," he said. He meant it the way a vow is meant. "You remember anything that can be a thread?" She nodded slowly. "We were buying cake mix for my mom's birthday. She let me pick sprinkles. Then she put her hand on my head and said, 'Right back,' and went to get candles. And then," Ava swallowed hard. "Then the man talked to me like he knew my mom and said she told him to wait with me. He said she was paying. He said," her breath hitched. "He said her cart rolled away and she was chasing it. He said to come quick. I couldn't see her. I wanted to find her. I went with him. When we got near the doors I remembered my teacher's story about the hand signal. But I didn't remember how to do it. So I just did one finger." "You were brave," Mark said, the words thick. "You were very, very brave." She looked at the hot chocolate, then at the stuffed bunny. "What if he comes back?" "He won't," Mark said. "Not to you. Not ever." He meant that, too. Detective Miller slid into the room with the walk of a man who had too much to say and not enough time to say it in. "Mark," he said, nodding at Ava like he didn't want to spook a deer. "We pulled a partial from the sedan's rear plate. There's a connection to a storage unit near the river. And we found something else in the trunk. Women's wallet, no cash, no cards, just a library card with the name Hannah Pierce." Ava's head jerked up. "Hannah Pierce is my mom." Mark stood so fast his chair scraped. "Let's go." They moved in a caravan. 2 squad cars, a plain sedan with Miller inside, Mark riding front seat, lights low and sirens off until they were 3 blocks away. The sky had the color of dishwater, February pressing cold through the seams of everything. Mark's radio hissed with clipped updates. He kept an eye on the mirror and one on the picture of his sister he kept tucked behind the visor, the one where she wore a ridiculous foam finger and pretended not to care about the score. He didn't know why he looked at it now, only that it steadied him the way prayers steady people who believe more than he does. The storage facility sat by the river, long hallways of metal doors painted cheerful blue in the brochure and dead blue in person. A manager led them down a corridor that smelled faintly of oil and something trying to be lemon. Midway, he stopped at Unit 214 and fumbled with a ring of keys. "Leaseholder?" Miller asked. The manager checked a clipboard. "Cash, month to month. Name on lease as Cal Richmond." The lie had a paper body after all. "Back up," Miller told the manager. "Stay behind us." They stacked at the door. Mark's pulse was a clean drumbeat now. He could feel his knee when he moved. He could taste copper at the back of his throat. The roll-up door rattled like old thunder when they yanked it. What waited inside was darkness punched with a lamp's pale circle, a folding chair, a coil of rope, a stained blanket, a plastic bin of women's belongings, lipsticks, hair ties, more wallets with names no one had bothered to remove. And on the floor, half hidden behind the chair, a woman with duct tape across her mouth, wrists bound, eyes blazing with a mix of terror and fury that has a name only mothers know. "Hannah Pierce," Mark called, already moving. "Police. You're safe." They cut the tape and the rope and Hannah didn't speak at first. She launched herself into Mark's chest like a bird finding water. She clung. She shook with sobs that sounded like grief and relief had found the same hallway and collided. "Ava," she gasped when she could form the word. "My baby. Please. She's safe," Mark said into her hair. "She's safe." Hannah's legs buckled. He caught her. She was light, too light, and her cheek was bruised at the edge of the bone. The metal walls bounced the echoes of their breath around like a choir that had lost its melody but not its force. They got Hannah to an ambulance. She refused the stretcher until Mark said, "Ava will ride with you." Then she climbed in like every step was a negotiation she intended to win. At the hospital, Ava's scream when she saw her mother shivered the air. It wasn't fear, it was the sound of a string pulled too tight loosening all at once. They folded into each other, small and big, same bones, same stubborn chin, love making a shape that made all the fluorescent harshness of the ER recede. "Ma'am," Miller said gently after the first flood had passed, "we're going to need your statement when you're ready." Hannah nodded, wiped her eyes, kissed the top of Ava's head. "He followed me," she said, voice hoarse. "2 days ago, I think. At the bus stop. Then today at the store. My cart rolled and I chased it. I turned back and she was. It's over," Mark said. "You got her back. She got you back." Hannah looked at him with a bewildered gratitude that hurt to meet. "How did you know?" "She told me," Mark said, smiling at Ava. With one finger. Hannah frowned, then understood. Her face folded. "Smart girl," she whispered, tears starting again. "My smart, brave girl." News trucks showed up because they always do. The store manager made a statement about quick-thinking staff and a heroic officer. Social feeds spun the story faster than the official report could catch up. People argued in comments about what the right-hand signal was and whether the officer should have fired at the tires and whether the store should have better security. All of it seemed so far away from the room where a mother watched her daughter sleep with a bunny crushed to her chest and where an officer stared at the scuffed toes of his boots and felt something like peace and something like ache wash through him, alternating currents in the same wire. A week passed. The men were charged. An investigation widened and widened until it became a map of places where light hadn't reached in too long. Some nights Mark woke with his fists clenched, furious at every inch of dark he couldn't stand in. Other nights he slept sound for the first time in months. On a Tuesday when the sky was kind for no particular reason, Hannah brought Ava by the station with a Tupperware of lemon bars and a thank you card Ava had drawn herself in thick crayon. The bunny had a police badge. The officer had hair. The sun had a smiling face and too many rays. Mark pretended to be offended about the hair and Ava giggled the way children do when their fear has a new scar but has stopped bleeding. "We wanted to say it where it counts," Hannah said, setting the lemon bars on his desk. "Thank you." Mark looked at the card a long time. He had a box in his closet at home with things like this, a construction paper medal from a second-grade class he'd visited, a faded wristband from a hospital where a boy had made it through the surgery, a letter from a mother whose teenager had come home in one piece because a patrol car showed up at the right minute. He'd fold this card and add it to the box tonight. Someday, when the job wore him down to thread and stubbornness, he'd open the box and remind himself of why. "You two did the hard part," he said. "You kept going." Hannah smiled, a real one this time. "I was thinking," she said, glancing at Ava. "Maybe we could help other kids know what to do. At school, or church, or anywhere they'll let us talk. Some of them don't know any signals. Some of them forget when they're scared. We can help with that," Mark said. "We can make sure they have more than one way to say it." Ava studied him. "What if they forget everything? Then we teach them something they won't forget," he said. He lifted one finger. "Like this." Ava's face lit. She held up her own finger, solemn and proud. Then she added a second finger and giggled. "Two," she said, "for blue." They made a small promise right there, in the middle of the station, where the scent of coffee and printer ink had become the city's own weather. They set up a monthly talk with the PTA and a Saturday safety day in the grocery store, right where it happened, by the marshmallows that suddenly mattered. They practiced signals and scripts and voices that could carry across fear. They made little cards kids could tuck into backpacks next to crayons and secrets. They taught parents to listen with their eyes. On the first Saturday, Mark stood by a table with a poster that said, "If you can't say it, show it," in letters Ava had colored. Kids came shy and left loud. Parents nodded with the kind of relief that never says its own name. Mark watched them and thought of the aisle and the light and the single finger that pierced a world too busy to notice. When the last family left, Hannah walked up beside him. They didn't say much. The air smelled like apples from the display behind them, sharp and clean. A little boy tugged his mom toward the samples. A teenager rolled her eyes at her father and pulled a hood over her head, pretending she wasn't smiling. Some days, Hannah said, I think about what almost happened and I can't breathe. Me too, Mark said. Different version, same air, she nodded. But then I think about how she looked at you. How you looked at her. She touched his sleeve, a brief, grateful pressure. You saw her. That's my job, Mark said. No, Hannah said, gentle but sure. Your job is to enforce the law. Seeing her. That's who you are. Mark didn't have an answer for that, not one that fit in his throat. He watched Ava skip toward them, blue bouncing at her side, the bunny's ear finally sewn up with a crooked blue thread that gave it permanent personality. Officer Mark, she called, bright as a bell. We're making hot chocolate tonight. Do you want to guess how many marshmallows? He pretended to think hard. 1, more, 2, she grinned. So many. Good, he said. Make 1 extra for me. They left the store as the late sun found gold in the parking lot's ordinary gray. Somewhere, a siren wailed for someone else's emergency. Somewhere, a baby laughed for reasons no one could see. Ava slipped her hand into her mother's, and for a moment the whole world looked like a hand signal everyone could read. One small finger saying, I'm here. One small finger saying, help. One small finger saying, we made it. And in a city that could be unkind, that was more than a message. It was a promise.